The massive Imperial ship hung against the blackness of space. It was bigger than any building on Earth. Its hull shone like polished metal, with strange symbols etched into its sides. This was the pride of the Quran Empire, rulers of more than 10,000 worlds. Inside the great ship, Commander Han walked the gleaming halls. He was tall for his species, with scaled skin that shimmered blue-green in the light. His eyes, with their narrow slits, missed nothing. Han had welcomed 63 new species to the Empire in his long career. Humans would be number 64. "Commander, the human ship approaches," said an aide, bowing low. Han nodded. "Prepare the welcome hall, full military display." The Empire always followed the same plan with new species. First, show them overwhelming power. Then offer them a deal they could not refuse. Join the Empire, pay heavy taxes, give up their resources, and live. The alternative was destruction. It had worked for over 10,000 years. Han studied the reports on humans again. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 18 years ago. Their ships were simple. Their weapons were basic. They had barely united their own planet after centuries of fighting among themselves. They would be easy to intimidate. "What a small vessel," Han said, watching the human ship dock. It was plain and functional, not much bigger than an Imperial shuttle. These humans do not understand proper displays of power. The human ship connected to the Imperial docking bay. Guards in gleaming armor lined up, weapons ready but not pointed. Massive war machines stood in the corners of the hall, their weapons definitely pointed at the entrance where the humans would appear. The doors slid open. 5 humans walked out. They wore simple blue uniforms with a round patch showing their planet. They carried no visible weapons. They looked so soft with their hairless faces and fragile bodies. The one in front stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Day of Earth. We bring greetings from humanity." His voice was calm and measured. His eyes moved quickly, taking in everything. Han noticed that the human didn't seem impressed or frightened by the display of Imperial might. "Interesting. Welcome to the Imperial flagship," Han said. "I am Commander Han, diplomatic representative of the Quran Empire. Your journey must have been long." Day smiled slightly. "Thank you for your concern. The journey gave us time to prepare." The human ambassador introduced his team. "This is Technical Advisor Jin," he said, pointing to a shorter man with watchful eyes. "Security Officer Yoon." A strong-looking woman nodded curtly. "Cultural Liaison Sue." A woman with a kind face smiled. "And Communications Specialist Jay." The last man was thin and quiet, with eyes that seemed to see everything. Han led them through the massive halls of the Imperial ship. At every turn, he made sure the humans saw the Empire's power. Soldiers trained in massive chambers. Engineers worked on weapons bigger than buildings. Screens showed planets where the Empire ruled. The humans watched everything, their faces revealing nothing. "The Quran Empire spans over 10,000 worlds," Han explained. "Our technology is the most advanced in the known galaxy. Our military might is unchallenged." "Impressive," said Day. But Han noticed the human's eyes didn't show the fear he expected. Instead, there was something else, something like assessment. They reached the diplomatic quarters where the humans would stay. The rooms were luxurious, by Imperial standards. "We will begin formal talks tomorrow," Han said. "Tonight, rest from your journey." After Han left, the 5 humans gathered in the main room. They checked carefully for listening devices, using small tools hidden in their uniform buttons. "They're exactly what we expected," Jin said, once they were sure they could speak freely. "Aggressive expansion, military focus, hierarchical structure." Day nodded. "They think we're easy targets, new to space, technologically behind." "Their security is good but predictable," Yoon said. "Standard formations, visible weapons as intimidation tactics. The cultural displays are all military victories," Sue noted. "Art celebrating conquest. No representations of cooperation or peace." Jay had been silent, watching his companions. Now he spoke. They've done this many times before. It's routine for them. That's their weakness. Day nodded again. We stick to the plan. Be respectful. Look impressed. Gather information. He looked at each of his team members. Remember what's at stake. The next morning, formal talks began. The humans were escorted to a massive hall. The Emperor wasn't present. New species didn't warrant his attention yet, but 20 high-ranking officials sat at a long table. Han stood to greet them. The Koran Empire welcomes Earth to the galactic community, he announced. For 10,000 years we have brought order and progress to the galaxy. Your world now has the honor of joining our great empire. The humans sat quietly, listening. Different Imperial official Minister Real explained the terms. As members of the Empire, you will provide 10% of your world's resources annually. Your military will serve under Imperial command. Your laws will follow Imperial standards. In return, you receive our protection and limited access to Imperial technology. When the official finished, the room fell silent. The humans were expected to simply agree to these terms. All new species did. Day stood slowly. The people of Earth, thank you for this generous offer, he said, his voice still calm. We would like to suggest some small adjustments that might benefit both our worlds. The Imperial officials looked surprised. New species didn't negotiate. Perhaps, Day continued. A trade agreement first, before full Imperial membership. Earth has unique resources that might interest the Empire. Han narrowed his eyes. The terms are standard for all new members of the Empire. Of course, Day said smoothly. But Earth's situation is somewhat unique. Our planet has over 200 political regions with their own governance. We need time to bring them all into agreement on Imperial membership. This was not entirely true, but the humans had decided this approach before coming. The Imperial officials discussed among themselves. Finally, Han spoke. We will consider a temporary trade arrangement while Earth organizes itself, but know that Imperial membership is the only true path forward. Thank you for your understanding, Day said with a bow. We look forward to learning more about the mighty Koran Empire. As the days turned into weeks, the humans attended meetings, toured Imperial facilities, and learned everything they could about the Empire. They were always respectful, always impressed but never intimidated. What the Empire didn't know was that Earth had intercepted messages from other conquered worlds before making contact. Humanity knew exactly what the Empire did to planets that joined them. The protection was control. The limited technology kept new members dependent. The resources were stripped until worlds were empty. Each night, the human team sent coded messages back to Earth, hidden in regular diplomatic updates. Each day they smiled at their Imperial hosts and asked for more time, more information, more tours. And all the while, Commander Han watched them, wondering why these humans were different from the other species he had welcomed into the Empire. Why their eyes held no fear when they saw Imperial weapons. Why they studied everything so carefully. He didn't know yet what humanity was hiding, but soon he would find out. 3 months passed on the Imperial flagship. The human delegation had settled into their quarters. Each day they attended meetings about trade, resources, and the benefits of joining the Empire. Each night they sent secret messages back to Earth. In another part of the huge ship, Intelligence Officer Tay sat alone in his office. He was smaller than most Korans, with scales that were almost black. His job was to study new species and find their weaknesses. He had been watching the humans closely. Computer, show me footage of the human delegation during yesterday's military parade, Tay said. The screen lit up. Tay watched as the Empire's soldiers marched past the humans. Thousands of troops in perfect formation, weapons that could destroy cities. War machines that towered over the crowd. Most new species showed fear during these displays. Some trembled, some looked away. All of them understood the message. Resist, and this power will crush you. But the humans were different. Ambassador, Day watched with a calm face. His eyes moved from soldier to soldier, weapon to weapon. He wasn't afraid. He was studying. Security Officer Yoon stood with her hands behind her back. Her eyes followed the movements of the Imperial Guards. Once, when a formation changed, Tae saw something flash across her face. Was it recognition? Computer, magnify Yoon's expression at time mark 1422, Tae ordered. The image zoomed in. Yes, there it was. For just a moment, Yoon had almost smiled, as if she knew something about the formation that others didn't. These are not normal diplomats, Tae muttered. He had noticed other strange things. Technical advisor Jin asked questions about Imperial technology that were too precise, too knowledgeable. Cultural liaison Su seemed to understand Imperial power structures before they were explained. Communications specialist Jay was too quiet, always watching, always listening. Tae decided to test his suspicions. That night, at a dinner celebrating the continued negotiations, he arranged a small accident. As servants carried drinks to the high table, one tripped near Security Officer Yoon. A glass fell, spilling liquid toward her. Most people would jump back or freeze. Yoon did neither. In one smooth motion, her hand shot out and caught the glass mid-air, not spilling a drop. Her body had shifted slightly, ready for more movement if needed. These were not the reflexes of a diplomat. These were the movements of someone trained for combat. Thank you for your quick action, Tae said, approaching her table. Yoon smiled politely. Just lucky, she said. Yes, lucky. Tae didn't believe in luck. The next day, Tae went to Commander Han's office. I have concerns about the human delegation, Tae said. Han looked annoyed. The humans had been difficult in negotiations, always. Polite but never actually agreeing to Imperial terms. What concerns? They don't behave like diplomats. They behave like military personnel. Han waved his hand dismissively. Many species send people with security training on diplomatic missions. This is different, Tae insisted. Have you noticed how they react to our military displays? Not with fear, but with professional assessment. They're analyzing our capabilities. All species try to gauge our strength, Han said. I checked their backgrounds, Tae continued. Earth claims these 5 have been diplomats for many years, but humans only achieved space travel 18 years ago. How could they have so much diplomatic experience with other worlds? Han finally looked interested. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting they're not who they claim to be. I need permission to dig deeper into Earth's information networks. Han thought for a moment. Granted, but be careful. If they are hiding something, I want to know what it is before they know we're looking. Tae set to work. Imperial hackers had already accessed Earth's global computer network. There was so much information, most of it useless. Humans documented everything about their lives. It would take time to find what he was looking for. Meanwhile, the human delegation continued to impress Imperial officials. They suggested trade. Deals that seemed good for the Empire but had hidden benefits for Earth. They never agreed to full membership in the Empire, always finding polite reasons to delay. We're still consulting with Earth's governments, Ambassador Day would say. Such an important decision cannot be rushed. One day, during a tour of the ship's engine room, Technical Advisor Jin asked a question about the power distribution system. It was a clever question, one that showed he understood exactly how the system worked and where its weakness might be. The Imperial engineer answered before thinking, then realized what he had revealed. He reported the incident to Tae. These humans know too much, Tae said to himself. Time to see how they react under pressure. The next day, Tae ordered an unexpected security drill. Alarms blared throughout the diplomatic section. Guards rushed through hallways. The drill simulated an attack on the ship. Through hidden cameras, Tae watched the human delegation's reaction. Other alien diplomats on the ship panicked. They ran to safe rooms or huddled together, frightened and confused. Humans did something completely different. Within seconds, they gathered in their main room. Ambassador Day spoke quickly, giving what looked like orders. The others nodded and moved with purpose. Security Officer Yoon immediately checked the exits. She positioned herself where she could see both doors. Her hands were empty, but ready. Technical. Advisor Jin went to the communication panel and did something with the wires. Was he disabling it? Or creating a secure channel? Cultural liaison. Sue gathered their important documents and devices, quickly organizing them. Communications specialist Jay stood by the window, watching the Imperial ships outside, tracking their movements. These were not the actions of diplomats. These were battle-trained responses. They had done this before. The security drill ended 10 minutes later. When Imperial guards checked on the human delegation, they found them sitting calmly in their main room. "Is everything all right?" "Ambassador," Jay asked, looking concerned. "We heard alarms. Just a routine drill," the guard said. "Nothing to worry about." "I see. Your security protocols are most impressive," Day said with a polite smile. After the guard left, Tay watched through the cameras as the humans exchanged looks. They knew it had been a test. In his office, Tay worked through the night. Earth's information network was vast, but he now knew what to look for. Military records, combat training, war histories. Earth had known conflicts for most of its history. Humans fought each other over land, resources, beliefs. Their wars were brutal and frequent. Only recently had they united enough to reach the stars. Tay searched older records looking for the faces of the 5 human diplomats. Hours passed with no results. Then, just as the ship's day cycle was beginning, he found something. Military. Archives from Earth's recent wars. Restricted files that had been sealed from public view. Tay's eyes widened as images appeared on his screen. Younger faces, but unmistakable. Ambassador Day in a military uniform covered in medals. Security Officer Yoon leading troops into battle. Technical Advisor Jin standing next to a massive weapon of unknown design. Cultural Liaison Sue addressing prisoners of war. Communications Specialist Jay with blood on his hands, standing among ruins. They weren't diplomats at all. They were warriors, commanders, what humans called war criminals. And now they were here, inside the heart of the Empire, learning everything about Imperial defenses. Tay rushed to Commander Han's quarters, the evidence secured in his personal device. "Commander," he said urgently, "we have a serious problem." Commander Han stared at the evidence on the screen. His scaled face showed no emotion, but the quick movement of his inner eyelids betrayed his shock. "Are you certain these are the same humans?" he asked Tay. "Yes, Commander. The facial recognition is 99.8% accurate," Tay replied. "Our delegation is not who they claim to be." The screen showed military records from Earth, accessed from their global information network. 5 faces looked back at them, younger, but unmistakable. "Tell me what you found," Han ordered. Tay pointed to the first image. Ambassador Day was actually General Day, commander of something called the Eastern Coalition during Earth's resource wars. His forces were known for the Scorched Earth campaign. They destroyed entire cities to deny resources to the enemy. Millions died. Han studied the image of Day in a military uniform, standing amid ruins of a city. Continue. Technical Advisor Jin was Colonel Jin, a military engineer. He designed weapons of mass destruction during the African conflicts. His creations could level mountains. This one, Tay swiped to a new image, killed 300,000 people in one day. The image showed Jin standing next to a small device that didn't look dangerous at all, but behind him was a massive crater where a city had once stood. Security Officer Yoon was Captain Yoon of their Special Operations Division. She has over 300 confirmed kills in covert operations. Her specialty was infiltrating enemy territory and eliminating high-value targets. The screen showed a younger Yoon, face painted black, holding a strange weapon and staring coldly at the camera. Cultural Liaison Sue was Dr. Sue, an expert in psychological warfare. She created tactics to break enemy populations' will to fight. Her methods were so effective that they're now banned on Earth. Sue's image showed her in a laboratory, surrounded by screens showing human brain patterns. And Communications Specialist Jay was Major Jay, an intelligence officer. His job was to extract information from enemy combatants. Han understood what that meant. A torturer? Yes, Tay said quietly. By their own world standards, these humans are war criminals. They've hidden their true identities and histories. Han paced the room. This changed everything. Why would Earth send these people as diplomats? Are they planning to attack us? I don't know, Tay admitted. But they've been gathering information about our defenses, our weaknesses, our command structure. Han made a decision. Bring them to the Imperial Council. Now. Within an hour, Imperial guards surrounded the human quarters. The 5 delegates were escorted, firmly but without violence, to the Great Council chamber at the heart of the ship. Emperor Kang himself was present, a rare occurrence for dealing with a minor species. He sat on a floating throne, his scales a deep purple that signified royal blood. Around him, 20 council members watched as the humans were brought before them. The humans showed no fear, even now. Commander Han stood. Ambassador Day, or should I say, General Day? For the first time, surprise showed on Day's face, but it quickly disappeared. You've been researching us, Day said calmly. You have deceived the Quran Empire, Han continued. You present yourselves as diplomats when you are warriors with blood-soaked hands. Large screens appeared on the walls of the chamber. They displayed the evidence Tay had found, images of the humans in military roles, statistics of death tolls, video footage of destruction they had caused. General Day, responsible for the deaths of 3.2 million civilians during the resource wars, Han read. Colonel Jin, creator of the molecular disruptor that killed 342,000 in a single day. Captain Yoon, with 311 confirmed assassinations. Dr. Su, whose psychological warfare broke 9 different cultures. Major J, who extracted information through methods so brutal they were banned by your own species. The council chamber was silent. The evidence was overwhelming. Emperor Kang spoke, his voice deep and cold. Explain this deception before you are executed. Ambassador Day, General Day, stepped forward. His posture changed completely. Gone was the diplomatic politeness. Now he stood tall with the confidence of a military commander. We never claimed to be career diplomats, he said. We were selected precisely because of our past. Commander Han was shocked by the transformation. You sent war criminals as representatives? No, Day corrected. We sent the only humans qualified to recognize an empire built on subjugation and violence. We've seen your kind before in the mirror. The difference is we've evolved past it. Jin stepped forward. His voice was quiet, but carried throughout the chamber. Every human standing here has committed terrible acts, he said. We've seen wars. True face. We've ordered strikes that destroyed cities. We've developed weapons that killed indiscriminately. And every night we live with those ghosts. The council members looked at each other, confused. Humans were openly admitting to these crimes? Yoon spoke next, her military bearing now obvious. Humanity unified not through conquest, but by confronting our capacity for self-destruction. Our history of violence forced us to change or perish. Emperor Kang leaned forward. Your backgrounds were concealed to deceive us. Su shook her head. They were included in our psychological profiles provided in the first diplomatic package. You simply assumed they were fictional stress scenarios, not actual history. Tay quickly checked the original documents. His eyes widened. She's right, he said to Han. It's here, but described as psychological response patterns to theoretical conflict situations. Your empire has grown so accustomed to dealing with subservient species that you never considered we might understand the game better than you. Su continued. Jay, who rarely spoke, finally broke his silence. You show military might to intimidate. You offer protection that is really control. You demand resources until worlds are empty. We've done all these things to our own people. We recognize the pattern. The Imperial Council erupted in angry shouts. Guards moved closer to the humans, weapons ready. Emperor Kang raised a hand and silence fell instantly. You admit to being war criminals by your own world standards, the Emperor said. Yet you stand before us without shame, without fear. Explain this contradiction. Day looked directly at the Emperor, breaking imperial protocol that required lesser beings to avert their eyes. On Earth, we have a saying, "Set a thief to catch a thief," he said. Who better to recognize the tactics of conquest than those who have used them? Who better to negotiate with an empire built on fear than those who once ruled through fear? Han finally understood. Your planet sent you because you would not be fooled by our displays of power. Yes, Day nodded. And because we have seen firsthand where the path of conquest leads, to destruction, to emptiness, to worlds of ashes. Each of us followed that path to its end, Jin added. Each of us helped destroy what we sought to rule. And each of us learned that there is another way, Yoon said. A better way, Su continued. A way humanity hopes the Koran Empire might consider, Jay finished. Emperor Kang studied the 5 humans for a long moment. These strange beings had committed horrible acts, by their own admission, yet they stood before him now, offering, what? Redemption? Partnership? What exactly does humanity want from the Empire? The Emperor asked. General Day straightened to his full height, looking more like a military commander than ever. That, he said, is what we came here to discuss. The council chamber remained silent after General Day's declaration. No one, not even the Emperor, had expected this turn of events. Emperor Kang finally spoke. You wish to discuss terms? You stand before us as admitted war criminals, and you believe you are in a position to negotiate? Day did not back down. We stand before you as representatives of humanity. Our pasts give us insight that peaceful diplomats would not have. The Emperor's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of agitation in his species. And what insight would that be, General? That your empire is following the same path many human nations once did, a path that leads only to destruction. Day's voice was calm but firm. We recognize the signs because we've seen them before. Commander Han stepped forward. This is outrageous. The Koran Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. What could your primitive species possibly teach us about? Governance? Jin answered. How it ends. The simple statement hung in the air like a physical thing. Explain, Emperor Kang demanded. Jin looked at his fellow humans who nodded for him to continue. Before becoming Colonel Jin, I was Professor Jin. I studied the fall of empires. All empires fall, eventually. The pattern is always the same. Jin spoke clearly, his engineering mind laying out facts. First, expansion through superior power. Then, extraction of resources from conquered territories. As resources diminish, more conquest is needed. The empire stretches too thin. The conquered grow resentful. The cost of control rises. Eventually, collapse. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. One spoke up. The Empire faces no serious resistance. We have no rivals. Yoon laughed softly. Neither did we when we commanded the special forces. We crushed any who opposed us. Until one day we couldn't. The harder you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers. Su stepped forward. I spent my career breaking enemy populations, making them lose hope. But I discovered something important. A broken people will eventually find strength in their despair. When they have nothing left to lose, they become truly dangerous. The council chamber erupted in angry shouts. Guards moved closer to the humans. Weapons raised. Silence! Emperor Kang's voice cut through the noise. The room immediately fell quiet. The Emperor studied the humans. You claim our empire will fall. Yet we have ruled for millennia while your species has barely mastered space travel. Why should we heed your warnings? Jay spoke, his voice soft but penetrating. Because we have seen it happen, again and again. Because we have caused it to happen, and because we believe there is an alternative that benefits both humanity and the Koran Empire. The Emperor leaned forward. What alternative? True alliance, Day said. Not subjugation disguised as protection. Equal partnership. Laughter rippled through the council. Equal, Your species is centuries behind us technologically, said one counselor. Technology isn't everything, Jin replied. Humanity has something the Empire needs more than new weapons or faster ships. And what could that possibly be? Han asked skeptically. A different path forward, Day answered. One that doesn't end in collapse. The Emperor raised a hand to quiet the council again. You speak boldly for prisoners who may soon be executed. If you execute us, you will be at war with humanity within a standard month, Day said matter-of-factly. Not because we are so important, but because it would confirm everything we reported back to Earth about the Empire's true nature. Tay spoke up from his position near Commander Han. They've been sending messages back to Earth all this time. Of course we have, Sue said. Did you think we wouldn't? Your transmissions were monitored, Han said. They contained only diplomatic updates. Yoon smiled slightly. Our communications were designed to be read by you. The real messages were hidden within. Tay looked troubled. They could have sent anything. Battle plans, defense weaknesses, fleet, positions. We did, Jay confirmed. Along with our assessment of whether the Quran Empire could be reasoned with or if war was inevitable. The council chamber grew tense. Guards gripped their weapons tighter. Emperor Kang's voice cut through the tension. And what was your assessment, General Day? Day met the Emperor's gaze directly. Still undecided. That's why we're having this conversation. For the first time, a hint of respect showed in the Emperor's eyes. You are either very brave or very foolish. Both, Day admitted. Like most soldiers. The Emperor considered this. You say you offer an alternative path. Explain what you mean, precisely. The 5 humans exchanged glances. They had prepared for this moment. The Empire expands. Because it must, Jin began. New resources are constantly needed to maintain control over existing territories. But there's a fundamental flaw in this model. What flaw? Asked a council member. It's unsustainable, Jin said simply. Even in a galaxy of millions of worlds, you will eventually run out of places to conquer, resources to extract. And long before that happens, the cost of maintaining control will exceed the value gained. This is basic Imperial mathematics, scoffed Commander Han. We've balanced this equation for 10,000 years, have you? Sue asked. Or has the Empire been slowly consuming itself, needing more and more resources just to maintain what it already has? How much of your fleet is dedicated not to expansion, but to putting down rebellions on worlds you conquered centuries ago, Amrel? Council members shifted uncomfortably. This was classified information, but the human was correct. What do you propose instead? The Emperor asked. Partnership, Day said. Trade instead of tribute. Cooperation instead of conquest. Mutual growth instead of extraction. Pretty words, Han dismissed. But the Empire was built on strength, not cooperation. And that's why it will fall, Yoon said. Strength alone is not enough. We learned this lesson the hard way. Show them, Day said to Jin. Jin pulled out a small device from his pocket. Guards immediately pointed weapons at him. It's just a projector, Jin explained calmly. May I? After receiving a nod from the Emperor, Jin activated the device. A 3-dimensional image appeared in the center of the chamber. This was Earth. 200 years ago, Jin said. The image showed a planet divided into colored sections with areas of conflict highlighted in red. Much of the world was red. We fought over resources, territory, beliefs. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Jin touched the device and the image changed. This is Earth now. The new image showed a united world with stunning cities, green landscapes, and orbital stations. We rebuilt. We found a better way forward, not through more war, but through cooperation. Not by taking from each other, but by creating together. Touching story, said a council member. But the Quran Empire isn't composed of one species on one world. We rule 10,000 different species across 10,000 worlds. Which makes your potential even greater, Sue said. 10,000 different ways of thinking. 10,000 different approaches to problems. 10,000 sources of innovation and creativity, instead of forcing them to serve you until they break or rebel, Jay added. Imagine what they could accomplish as willing partners. The council chamber was quiet as the implications sank in. Emperor Kang spoke slowly. What you suggest would change the very nature of the empire. It would be unprecedented. Yes, Day agreed. But consider the alternative. Continue as you have been, and eventually, the empire will collapse under its own weight. Change now on your own terms, and the empire can transform into something greater, something lasting. The emperor's eyes narrowed. And if we reject your advice? If we execute you as the war criminals you admit to being? Day didn't hesitate. Then humanity will prepare for war. A war we don't want, but will fight with everything we have. You would lose, Han stated. Probably, Day admitted. But we would ensure the empire lost as well. The council chamber grew tense again. How? Demanded a counselor. Your technology is inferior. Your numbers are smaller. Your single world stands against our 10,000. Yoon answered, her voice calm but cold. Because we know how to fall. We know how to lose everything and still keep fighting. Can you say the same after 10,000 years of victory? The Emperor's chamber was silent after Yoon's cold statement. Her words hung in the air. We know how to fall. We know how to lose everything and still keep fighting. Can you say the same after 10,000 years of victory? Emperor Kang's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of deep thought among his species. The council members looked at each other nervously. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor this way. You have courage, humans, Emperor Kang finally said. Or perhaps just foolishness. Day stepped forward. The Empire has 3 options, he stated clearly. First, execute us and prepare for war with humanity. A war you started by killing diplomats. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Second, reject peaceful relations and continue your expansionist policies. In which case, we will return to Earth and recommend immediate military preparations. Commander Han found his voice. You dare threaten the Empire? Your species is barely spacefaring. We could obliterate your homeworld with a fraction of our fleet. Perhaps, Jay replied, his quiet voice somehow filling the room. But consider this. 5 former war criminals were chosen as diplomats because we understand your military thinking. We've fought wars of annihilation and survived. Humanity united after nearly destroying itself in conflicts your intelligence reports have clearly misunderstood. Tay checked data on his device. He's right, he whispered to Han. Our reports underestimated the scale and brutality of Earth's wars. And the third option? Emperor Kang asked, leaning forward slightly. Genuine alliance, Day said. Not subjugation disguised as protection. Humanity doesn't want war. We've seen enough of it. But we won't become vassals to another species that hasn't learned what we learned through blood and fire. The Emperor's gaze moved slowly from one human to another. You were chosen not despite your pasts, but because of them. Explain this. Day looked at his companions, then back to the Emperor. Who better to recognize conquest than those who have conquered? Who better to see the path to destruction than those who have walked it? We aren't proud of what we've done, Jin added. But our experiences give us insight that peaceful diplomats would lack. The Emperor considered this. And what insights do you offer, Colonel Jin, creator of weapons that killed hundreds of thousands? Jin did not flinch from his past. That there is never enough power. I built weapons that could level cities, then mountains, then entire regions. Each time we needed more. Each time our enemies built their own. The cycle never ends. What about you, Captain Yoon? The Emperor asked. What lessons did you learn from your 311 kills? Yoon's face showed no emotion. That fear is temporary. That the oppressed eventually stop being afraid. And when they do, they become more dangerous than you can imagine. The Emperor turned to Sue. And you, Doctor? What did breaking the minds of your enemies teach you? That broken people find strength in their shared pain, Sue said. that cultures under attack grow stronger, not weaker. My psychological warfare worked at first, then backfired as people united against a common enemy. And the torturer? The Y. Emperor looked at Jay. That information obtained through pain is unreliable, Jay said quietly. That cruelty creates lies, not truth, and that those who inflict suffering eventually suffer themselves. Finally, the Emperor returned his gaze to Day. And what did the Scorched Earth campaign teach you, General? That victory over ashes is no victory at all, Day said simply. I won every battle, destroyed every enemy, and ruled over nothing but ruins and hatred. The council chamber was completely silent. Even Commander Han seemed affected by the human's words. You claim the Empire is following the same path, the Emperor said. That we face destruction if we continue. Yes, Day confirmed. The pattern is clear. Expansion through superior power. Extraction of resources from conquered territories. As resources diminish, more conquest is needed. The Empire stretches too thin. The conquered grow resentful. The cost of control rises. Eventually, collapse. This is the pattern of all empires in human history, Jin added. None escaped it. Not one. Emperor Kang rose from his throne, towering over the humans. The Quran Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. We have conquered 10,000 worlds. What makes you think we face the same fate as your primitive human empires? The math, Jin said bluntly. Your military spending increases every cycle. More and more of your fleet is dedicated to maintaining control rather than expansion. The resources from new conquests barely offset the cost of controlling old ones. The trend is unmistakable. The Emperor's inner eyelids flickered again. You seem very certain of information that should be highly classified. We studied everything we could find before coming here, Jay explained. And we've learned more during our time on your ship. Through your hidden messages to Earth? Commander? Han accused. Yes, Day admitted. We reported what we found, including whether the Quran Empire could be reasoned with or if war was inevitable. And your conclusion? The Emperor asked. Still undecided, Day said. That's why we're having this conversation. The Emperor descended from his platform, coming to stand on the same level as the humans. This was unprecedented. Emperors did not stand on the same ground as lesser beings. You offer a third option, he said. Alliance instead of conquest. How? Would this benefit the Empire? Sustainable growth, Jin said. Willing allies contribute more than conquered subjects. They innovate rather than just consume. They defend the alliance rather than looking for ways to break free. Reduced costs, Yoon added. No need to garrison troops on every world. No rebellions to put down. No resources wasted on control. Cultural exchange, Su continued. New ideas, new arts, new sciences. The strength of diversity rather than the weakness of uniformity. And peace, Jay finished. Real peace, not just the absence of visible resistance. The Emperor studied them. You paint a lovely picture, but the Empire was built on strength, not cooperation. And that's why it will eventually fall, Day said. Strength alone is not enough. We learned this lesson the hard way. The Emperor turned away, looking out at the stars through a massive viewport. The council chamber remained silent as he considered the human's words. Finally, he turned back. Your ideas are interesting, but they would change the very nature of the Empire. Many would resist such changes. Yes, Day agreed. Change is never easy. But continuing on your current path is even harder. Eventually, impossibly hard, the Thai Emperor was silent again, his inner thoughts hidden behind his alien face. Then he made a decision. Commander Han, have these humans return to their quarters, not as prisoners but as advisors. I wish to hear more of their ideas. Han looked shocked. My Emperor, they are admitted war criminals. They have deceived us. Yes, the Emperor agreed. That is precisely why their perspective matters. They have seen the darkness we now approach. They may help us find a different path. Han bowed stiffly. As you command, Emperor. As the humans were escorted from the chamber, Day looked back at the Emperor. Their eyes met across the room, across the gulf between two species, between conquest and cooperation. Something passed between them. Not friendship, not trust, but perhaps understanding. Later in their quarters, more comfortable now, though still guarded, the 5 humans gathered by the viewport, looking out at the stars. Do you think he'll actually listen? Yoon asked. Can an empire built on conquest really change? I don't know, Day admitted. But we have to try. We've all seen where the other path leads. To ashes, Jin said quietly. To emptiness, added Sue. To ghosts, whispered Jay. The humans stood in silence, watching the stars. They had come as diplomats hiding their pasts as war criminals. Now they stood revealed, their darkest deeds exposed. And somehow, that exposure had given their words power. Their warning might just save 2 civilizations, the Empire from its inevitable fall, and humanity from becoming the next target of a desperate, dying empire. As their ship had approached the Imperial flagship months ago, none of them had imagined this outcome. They had expected to be diplomatic pawns or perhaps martyrs if things went wrong. Instead, they found themselves in the unexpected role of teachers, trying to help an ancient empire learn what humanity had discovered through centuries of bloodshed. That true strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation. Not from fear, but from hope. Not from taking, but from creating together. It was a lesson they had each learned too late to save the millions who had died by their commands. But perhaps it wasn't too late for the Empire. Perhaps it wasn't too late for the galaxy. The 5 former war criminals, now reluctant ambassadors for a new way forward, continued their silent vigil among the stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new resistance, new hope. Today, it was enough that they had been heard.